is raising more questions. So let me start, Mike, with the following. Did your ballot change at all after week one?
One particular place it did change. Case I moved Hand from 13 to 4 because they went on the road and beat St. Joe's in a game that I didn't think they were going to win. And that, Hand, we kind of poked fun at Hand moving down to double S this year, but that could set up a Hand Killingly championship game that would be great.
It's funny because at the end of week one with Killingly's very impressive win against Hendricken on Friday, the talk after the game was about a state championship matchup with Hand. Like, no one's in the program is putting that out there, but fans and people who know have already looked up and said, wow, what a state championship that could potentially be. Hand and Killingly doing their part to feed that speculation.
Yeah, and I saw Chad after the game for a while the other night, and I was telling him, I really think that, and we said this, I think, last week here, I really think Killingly's got a chance to finish number one because they're number 3 now, and the FCAC teams that are near them are probably going to beat each other. And I know I shouldn't say this. I don't think Killingly's going to lose. I don't.
When's the last time a small school has finished number one in the poll? Because Killingly's finished the season as an undefeated state champion before and not made it to number one.
If I had to guess, I don't know. Ansonia probably. I know New London in '91 finished first.
So let me give you the forecast on that. The two things that Killingly needs to do is beat Massac and go undefeated. And if they do that, they will have done everything they can do. And I have no doubt that the teams in the 1 and 2 spot ahead of them right now will lose games. What's going to happen is whichever one of those teams has one loss is going to stay above Killingly for the entirety of the season. So a one-loss team from the big conference is going to stay above Killingly. Killingly will get to 2 and will hover at 2 and never move from 2, and that will be perfect and fabulous because it will be able to fuel the great debate of what does a school need to do then.
Well, I think it would help to beat a brand name in the finals, and that's Hand.
If Killingly beats Bishop Hendricken to start the season, Massac in the middle of the season, and Hand to cap off the season and stays undefeated, we'll put it way out there. We'll go to bat for them as number one. But I think to Peter's point, it's not likely because I think it's not a bias. I think just the view of the majority of voters is that a one-loss team. This is kind of like, a one-loss Texas in the versus a zero-loss, Boise State. They're just never gonna. Doesn't matter how good they are. Doesn't matter how competitive. Or maybe more like a TCU.
But don't forget though, Case Killingly is the defending champ. Mm-hmm. They've won 3 under Chad Neal.
Yep.
People know.
Yep.
So that's why I think they got a shot.
They are a super respected mid-major. I mean, that's how I think. At the end of my opinion, and you know this much better than me because you're more plugged into it, I think as you get down into Fairfield County, they find it quaint. Chad wins 3. That's quaint. How cute it is in the northeast corner that little Trailblazer team can win double S.
I think Killingly is more regarded now as Gonzaga. A high major in a mid-major league.
Butler at best. So I think this is a debate we're going to have all year long, and I would love if anybody from down that way is watching, or if we want to, get one of them to come and talk to us about it. I would love to have that conversation about, where Killingly fits into the big scheme of things. What game surprised you the most in the ECC this past week, or in the alliance with an ECC team?
What game? A good one. Okay. I don't know that I was all that surprised by a lot. You know what? The game that actually Bacon Academy winning over Oxford, and it's the way they did it.
So Bacon Academy, 3 field goals, including a 42-yarder in the fourth by Mason Howard, got him into overtime where they win in overtime with one of his 3 field goals. So if you were privy to Bacon Academy last year, as I was, you saw Mason Howard as a freshman, big leg immediately, coming in on the heels of Jace King, and who had a real good leg. Bacon walks into this freshman, great athlete, older brother. Doug is at Keene State, track kid. Mason is fearless, and he came in, and that's my biggest thing with young kickers is all you have to do is watch. He was fearless, he was like a golfer. He was able to maintain his mechanics on every swing of the leg. So as he backed up, and you just kept seeing him not altering anything, and I'm like, this kid's going to be a really good kicker. The problem is he's also a running back, defensive back, and pretty quickly may price himself out of those positions because of how valuable he is as the kicker, and that's a great way to win. So I would agree with you. What did you think about Ledyard and their win over Foreign?
Well, yeah, I mean, to go down there and score 29 points, Calvin Cassavant, 187 yards. And it's interesting because Thursday night they play NFA, and while NFA lost the last week, they held Trumbull to 12. They lost 12-3. That's pretty good.
And my understanding from my insider in the NFA camp is that NFA was without some starters, had a couple of drops in key spots, including touchdowns that were dropped, and they're going to go into this week saying that's a game they should have won, and they're going to rely on a defense that gave up 12 and an offense that looks like it should have scored more, had a 100-yard rusher. So that NFA Ledyard game is one we've circled. How about Wyndham posting a shutout in week 1?
I kept hearing they were down. They don't have anybody. They were down. We hear the same thing all the time, and all they do is win.
That's game 2 to circle
recording
this week, though, because now they're stepping up a class and they're taking on Fitch,
who looked good last week.
Well, as you know, and as all of you know, Fitch jumped up to number 2 in my ECC power rankings off of that win, because people forget. Just because Porter Carter scored all those touchdowns, he wasn't even supposed to be the quarterback. He got dropped back into the quarterback position after an injury in their last scrimmage, and all of a sudden he got 5 touchdowns. So I think Fitch Wyndham, NFA Ledyard, Killingly, East Lyme. Good news, East Lyme. You looked good. You got an opening win over Woodstock. You played well. Bad news, East Lyme. Your reward is Killingly. So, but those are the 3 big games, I think, in the ECC this week that will show us a little something about some teams that had impressive wins.
I think maybe East Lyme should get the ball to about the 30-yard line and then have Finn Bruno just kick.
That's the story. That Mike's fascination with kickers. Finn Bruno and Mason Howard, both with big legs. Bruno had a field goal in that game and a punt of
55 yards.
That's pretty good.
And
That's
a
a
38-yard field goal.
So what was what team was, I don't want to say disappointment, but what team surprised you with maybe the rough start they got off to in week 1?
New London. I never expect that. 50-12. I don't expect that.
I brought up this point, and I'll say it again. I think the last 2 years, their alliance matchups was the worst possible matchup for the type of team they had. And what I mean by that is last year, they were uber talented. They had Philistine at quarterback, and they had Demo at running back, and they had all the receivers, and they were so talented, but they went up against probably the worst possible matchup, the uber disciplined physical size of hand. It was just a tough matchup for them. This year, they're young and inexperienced and putting more first-time varsity players than ever before, and their alliance game is against the uber physical and disciplined and state power of Berlin. Probably the worst type of matchup for them. They would have been better off going against some super talented team, but that size and physicality of Berlin, that's a tough way for them to open.
And New London just has the name. You always expect them to be good. And so they're probably going to get matched up with a quality scheduling alliance opponent, whether they should be or not.
So I think for me, the team that stood out, and I don't know what to make of it, was Griswold's loss to Seymour. I don't know, I don't know how good Seymour is, but that's a lot of points to give up. They scored, which we thought they would, but I had Griswold higher on my rankings, and if it's just not the way you want to open up with a loss like that.
Nah, Seymour, typical tough Valley team. That one didn't shock me.
So I think we see some teams on the rise. We see some teams that we have now put question marks next to. And I think that brings us to Friday night, to what we have in store this Friday night on game day. Two teams that lost their opener in very different fashions. Two teams that had much different expectations for their seasons going in. What are your thoughts on the Waterford Lancers traveling over the bridge to take on the Stonington Bears?
I know Waterford lost last week to Sheehan. Sheehan's good in the finals last year. Had trouble stopping the run all night, but played a very, very good second half. Played themselves back into the game, and you kind of looked at it and went, they're going to win games. They're going to win their share. I have not seen a sophomore quarterback make a debut as Chase Nolda did. Threw for 187 yards and was fearless. I do think they're going to win their share.
And I think in many ways, they had hoped to win week one. I don't think anyone is surprised. That was I think they passed the test in what you said. The line held up pretty well. Defensively, it's hard to hold up against Sheehan anyway. But the offensive line held up okay. Nolda played well. Lots to build on. If they get their full team back this week, I think it gets them to that next step. Stonington's in sort of I don't want to call it a rebuild, but Stonington's in a transitional year. How do they stay competitive Friday?
I'm looking at one matchup, and I hope they are matched up against each other. Parker Spencer at receiver, Max Delarosa at corner. Max won the 100 and the 200 in the ECC outdoor season last year. Spencer I thought he caught 3 touchdowns last week. Played well. He is as shifty as you get, and seeing those two kids going up against each other, that's kind of the game within the game.
So I think this week we get to find out, a lot more across the league. How good can Waterford be? Who's real and who's not, or who at least has the makings of somebody who could be that next 2-3 teams in the ECC. I'm going to make you go out on a limb here and say, what team other than Killingly, what team will come out of this weekend with the most buzz about it?
Waterford. That's what I would say, only because I think one of the two players who did not play for them last week is going to play this week. Potential, major difference maker. And I looked again. I looked at them last week and went, I don't think they're going to beat Killingly, but I think they got a good shot against everyone else.
Well, off of week one, I like to, of course, look all the way to the end of the year. Thanksgiving Day, off of just week one, suddenly a Waterford team that could be state playoff bound. An East Lyme team that had an impressive week one win and might be better than they have been in the past few years. An NFA team that might be putting together their first significant push toward the postseason in a few years. A Ledyard Fitch game that could very well again have playoff implications. So just off of week one alone, Thanksgiving Day might have some better matchups than we think.
You guys probably would know this better than I do because everything just kind of runs together. But it feels like we've done Fitch Ledyard like 5 years in a row because there's always some kind of a playoff thing with one of those teams.
I believe it's been 3.
It was 3 or 4 years, and we went to East Lyme last year for the Waterford game.
Oh, I didn't go to that's why. Okay.
So I will say that New London NFA is always going to be New London NFA. But this year, the Thanksgiving Day games, just looking ahead, could be competitive again with playoff implications. So we'll find out a little bit more about Fitch as they take on Wyndham, and Ledyard and NFA going at it. But we'll be at Stonington High School Friday night, where, I think everybody's sort of mystery team, the Waterford Lancers, how good can they be? We're going to find out a little more about them on Friday night. As always, 6:15, we'll kick off the Phillies What's on the Menu pregame show, and then we'll have live action at Stonington High School, where the Bears play host to the Lancers, and all the action on game day. Looking forward to it. As always, Mike DeMoro with the top teams in the state and his views on the ECC. So again, in the comments, in the dialogue, who you got? Who's the next best team? Who's emerging? Why, should Killingly ever be the number one team in the state? And anything else that you want to yell and scream and tell me I'm missing the boat, because I'm getting used to that now too. I'll tell you, this whole media thing, I'm starting to get a handle on it. So
They're so nice, aren't they?
I wouldn't have it any other way. Bring it on. Let's go. Game day on Friday.